Assistant Superintendent of Education Services, and Dennis Bixler, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. And my name is Julie Mitchell, and I'm the proud superintendent of the Berlin Unified School District. So first off, thank you very much for your interest in learning more about serving as a provisional appointee board member in either Trustee Area 1 or Trustee Area 5. I'm going to share my screen and we'll go through a presentation to answer some questions. And as we are talking and as we're sharing information, if you have any questions or anything, you are welcome to use the chat feature. So the chat feature is available for you to respond with question and answer to the panelists, and we are happy to answer your questions as we go along. So again, thank you very much for your interest, and we look forward to sharing with you a little bit about what it's like in the Berlin Unified School District and what it would be like as a board member. So tonight we're going to do introductions, which I've done. We're going to talk about the role and function of the board, a little bit about district departments. We're going to share perspectives from a new board member, and we'll go through the appointment process, and then we have contact information if you have any further questions. We anticipate our meeting this evening not to exceed an hour. So in looking at our school district, just to give you a little bit of background, because everybody's coming to the table in their interest with different knowledge about our school district. So the Board of Education is the hub of the work that happens in our district, and they have an extreme responsibility to students, to staff, to parents, and the community as a whole. So normally our students are in the center of any diagram that we have. All of our work centers around our students. This diagram is shared in this way because the board has a responsibility to all four groups that you see there on the screen. Our school district boundaries serve 4 cities and unincorporated Los Angeles County. So we have students from the city of Walnut, La Puente, West Covina, Industry, and unincorporated Los Angeles County serving both Supervisor Hilda Solus's area and Janice Hahn's area. We have currently 12,668 students that we serve in grades TK or transitional kindergarten through grade 12. And then we have about another 5,000 adults and community members that we serve in our adult education program. We have 19 schools in the district, 11 elementary schools that serve students in grades transitional kindergarten through grade 6. We have 3 academies, and those serve students from transitional kindergarten to grade 8, 2 intermediate schools, grades 7 and 8, and 3 high schools. 2 of them are comprehensive high schools, Nogales High School and Roland High School, and we have 1 continuation high school. Our district population is about 74% unduplicated count, which means of our 12,668 students, approximately 74% of our students are either English language learner, foster youth, or low income. Our total operating budget is approximately $195 million. So you're able to see that it's a very comprehensive operation that we have in the district. The ethnic composition of our district is 64% Hispanic or Latino, 20% Asian, 8% Filipino, 4% Caucasian, 2% African American, and 2% other. We also have approximately 40 different home languages spoken throughout our district. So we're a very diverse community in the Berlin Unified School District. So our district operates off of both a mission and a vision statement. So the district's mission statement is there for you to read. It's also on our website, so you're able to view that. And then we also have our board vision. So our school board's vision is that the Berlin Unified School District promotes, expects, and accepts nothing short of excellence. And we have a collective commitment to be the best school district in California. So as we're working with all of our students, our staff, our parents, and our community, we have a collective commitment that we will be the best district in California, and that all of us are continuously giving 100% to support the learning of our students. When you look at the function of the Board of Education, what's the role of a board member? What does a board member do? I'm assuming that you're tuning in this evening to learn a little bit more about what it is that a board member does. So the primary function of the Board of Education is to act as a policy-making body for the district. The Board of Education provides board policy that staff then carries out. So they tell us what needs to be done, and we talk as staff on how that is done. So the board is charged with making sure that there's a quality education program for all of our students, from our littlest learners in transitional kindergarten, which are 4-year-olds, through graduating high school, as well as our adult education and our community programs. And there are various state laws, primarily the education code, that governs the work that a school district does and how the board leads that school district. The board has one employee that they hire, and that is the superintendent. So then it is then the role of the superintendent and staff to hire the other employees in the district. The board hires and evaluates the superintendent and works very closely with the superintendent, who my role is as the secretary to the board. And together, the Board of Education and the superintendent comprise our district's governance team. So the 6 individuals work very closely together. So the board delegates the administration of the school district to our professional staff, as you have our 3 assistant superintendents with us this evening, and all of the staff that they work with and support as well. So as an individual board member, as one single member on the board, an individual does not have the power to act independently in the name of the board when it comes to matters of the district. It is a collective group, and it's taken based on a majority vote of the board for action within the school district. So the role of the Board of Education, as I've shared a little bit, the board defines and adopts the policy for the district, and it's often referred to as the what. The board directs what's to be done or to be accomplished, and then staff, led by the superintendent and the assistant superintendents, implement the actions, and that defines the how. So what's the specific work that is done in the instructional program or within the responsibilities of the district is defined by staff. Our board adopts board policies, and we have bylaws, and it governs the work of the district and defines much of what's done in our district. So our board policies and our board bylaws can be found on our district website under the Board of Education tab. I want now to have asked our current board president, Angelina Pride, to share a little bit of your perspective on what it's like to serve on the board. So, and I put up here, what is it really like to serve on the Board of Education? Ms. Pride?
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. So first of all, welcome to all of you. I'm glad that you guys were able to log in to participate in this information session tonight. So just a few things that I'd like to highlight with you tonight about being a board member, because as I'm involved on some local school board committees where people from across Los Angeles County come together, I get the opportunity to meet a lot of new board members and hear what they thought being a board member was and what it actually is, what reality is. Just a couple of things really quickly. Being a board member it's more than just attending a meeting once a month. You have to prepare for those meetings that you attend. We're fortunate enough to have a superintendent who provides us with a lot of good information in advance of our meetings, along with the cabinet members, so that when we look at the board agenda, all of the items on the agenda, we've gotten a summary about each one of those items and an explanation about what's going to happen or what those items are related to. That really makes it easy for us to prepare. But in addition to looking at the agenda and looking at the information provided by the superintendent, you also may still have additional questions, and that's great, and you should ask those questions. And so we have time scheduled where we can meet with the superintendent to ask those additional questions and get additional information about anything we may have on the board agenda. So there is preparation that happens, and not just before a board meeting, but on a weekly basis. We're getting updates about things that are going on in the district, and you need to make sure that you read about those things, ask questions, and understand. Because when you're out in the community, if a community member walks up to you and asks about something that's happening in our district, you will be able to respond if you've done your preparation and your homework. The other thing is school activities, school site activities. I always have new board members ask, well, there's lots of activities and I see board members at different school sites. Do you have to go to everything? No, you don't have to go to everything. I am a working board member, so I work full time. But I do like to get out to the schools to go to some of the activities. I go to some of the sporting events, the arts and music events, some of the Scholastic Awards events, anything that they have. What will happen is that you'll receive a calendar on a regular basis of what's going on at the different school sites. Then you look at your calendar and see which places you can make it to. I always try to go to at least 2 activities per week. If that couldn't happen, it was okay. But you go to things that that will fit into your schedule, especially if you're a working individual. It might be a little bit more challenging to find those items. But one of the things when you go out to those activities at the school sites, it really helps because you get to know the students, you get to know the parents, you get to know all the stakeholders, you get to know the staff at the school sites, and that's how you form your relationships. Community engagement is a big part of being a board member, and not just sites at the activities at the school sites, but also in our community. Like there's the Rolling House Community Coordinating Council. We have representatives that go to the city council meetings in Walnut and La Puente and West Covina. So there's different ways to get out there and be engaged, but that is part of your position that you will want to make sure that you make the time to be involved. Just one real quick side note on that though, with the school activities and visiting school sites, if you want to visit a school site during the day, don't think that just because you're a board member, you just pop up whenever you want, demand that the principal come out and talk to you, or just walk into classrooms arbitrarily. You cannot do that. You cannot disrupt education. If you want to visit a school site, we encourage it. Our superintendent encourages it, but we'll schedule it to let the principal know that you will be there so they can make sure that there's somebody there to give you a map. You don't want to interrupt tests when students are taking tests. You don't want to interrupt certain projects that the students are doing and be a distraction to the learning process. So it's not like we're trying to keep secrets or anything. We just want to make sure that there's somebody there who can show you around or give you a map and guide you to classrooms, and that it's a good situation for everybody involved. Just like you don't maybe like guests showing up at your house unannounced, we shouldn't as board members just show up to school sites unannounced. A lot of times that could scare people too. They see a board member just popping up out of the blue, they could think they're in trouble. So we want to be respectful of them. The other thing I would say is balance. If you're applying for this position to be appointed to one of these positions and you work full time, balance is going to be important. Like I said, I've worked full time ever since I was on the board. I was also a parent of a high school kid when I first got elected, and they were involved in lots of activities. So I had to really work my schedule out, but it is possible. And the biggest thing with that is communication. If there's something that conflicts with your child's school activity, if you have a kid in the district, talk to the superintendent and your board president and let them know and see if you guys can work around it. So that is an option. Also, if you're a parent in the district and you have to be extra careful because you don't want to be someone who's looked at as showing favoritism to your child's school. If they're still in one of our schools, you want to make sure that you're fair, that you represent all schools in the district, and that you're there to support every child in the district. And speaking of that, the biggest thing too that I can tell you is that if you're elected by trustee area 1 or 5, if you're appointed by 1 or 2, 1 or 5, you don't just represent trustee area 1 or 5. You represent every school in our district, every student in our district. You're just elected by that district because that's where you live. It has nothing to do with your only looking out for that school in that district. You are a rolling unified school board member, not a trustee area 1 member or a trustee area 5 member. You were just elected from that area. So please make sure that you're very clear on that as you proceed. And then I just want to reiterate one thing that Dr. Mitchell already covered, is that you only have one employee, and that is Dr. Mitchell. You do not supervise cabinet. You do not supervise principals. You do not supervise classified staff or anyone else. So if you're coming and you would like to be appointed and you have in your mind, oh yeah, once I get appointed, this principal over here has to go, this classified staff member has to go, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. That's not how it works. So I hear that a lot from new trustees. They're surprised when they find out that they don't have the authority to do all of that. Make sure you understand your one employee is Dr. Mitchell, and that's it. We, as she stated, we provide direction to her, we set policy, and then they do the work. They implement that. Of course, if you have a concern about a staff member, you take it to Dr. Mitchell and to your board president, and then they will address it. But other than that, Dr. Mitchell is your employee, and remember, you work as a board of 5. You do not get to make individual decisions on your own. You cannot go into Dr. Mitchell's office and say, Dr. Mitchell, I want you to go over to this school right now and look at this because I saw this. That's not how it works. We are a board of 5. She is one individual who reports to 5 people. And so we have to work as a group if we see a problem. Now, of course, if it's an emergency, yes, please do. Notify her right away. Ask her to take care of it right away. But as far as things that you personally want done, that's not how it works. It's a body of 5, and everyone has a vote. And everything is discussed in open session of the meeting, and then we're voted on it, and then she takes action from there. So those are just a few things that I see that new trustees kind of are not clear on in the beginning. So I just wanted to share that with you. But being a board member is truly a rewarding experience. It's one that I am regretfully leaving. But I think that if you come in with the right mindset and you have the right attitude and you want to support this district and our students, that you will find also that it's a very rewarding experience. And if you follow the governance handbook that we have set forth, you will do an excellent job as a board member. Thank you, Dr. Mitchell.
Absolutely, thank you very much. And again, as we're going through, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and we will respond with those questions. Respond to your questions. Continuing on with our presentation and talking a little bit more about the district, there are 4 main offices within the district office where the work of the district takes place. So the superintendent's office, we have our administrative services where Mr. Alex Flores leads. We have human resources and the personnel commission led by Mr. Dennis Blixler, and our educational services department led by Dr. Maddie Zamora. So all of these are interwoven. So there isn't anything that is completely separate and apart. Everything is interwoven with the board, again, providing the direction through policy for the work that's done in the district. I wanted to share just a little bit about the different departments in the school district so that you're able to see that it is well beyond instruction and academics, because we do run a very comprehensive business operation as well. So under Assistant Superintendent of Administrative Services, Mr. Alex Flores, we have nutrition services providing meals, breakfast and lunch to all of our students, our purchasing department, our fiscal services department, building services and construction services, technology, transportation, all of our bus drivers and maintenance of all of our buses, as well as our maintenance and operation vehicle fleet, workers' compensation and benefits, as well as campus safety. Within educational services, under the leadership of Dr. Maddie Zamora, we have a secondary education program, which is grades 7 through 12, our elementary program, which is grades TK through 6. We have special projects, which supports our English language learners, as well as our GATE students, our overall instructional services, looking at the data and the instructional program that we have within our district. Student services handles all of our enrollment, student discipline, etc. Special education, many of our students that have learning needs, and their special education needs, and then our adult education program. Under for human resources, we have Dennis Bixler, handles all of our employee relations, all of our negotiations with both all of the hiring, retaining, and supporting our certificated personnel, so that's our teaching personnel, and our classified personnel, which is our non-teaching personnel. We have Eric Venegas with us this evening. Eric is our newest board member to join the team. He was elected in 2020, and I wanted to give him an opportunity to talk with you about the perspective of a new board member. So Ms. Pride has been on the board since 2013, and so she's had the opportunity to be on multiple seats on the board for the last 7 years. But Mr. Venegas has about 2 months under his belt, and so I wanted him to just share what the new board member experience has been like. Go ahead, Mr. Venegas.
Great, well, thank you. So I'm actually going to echo a lot of what Ms. Pride has said. So a little bit of background from me. One of my children just graduated from RUSD. I was an involved parent, so I attended board meetings as a parent, and so I attended a lot of functions, and I got to see board meetings. And when I saw board members and what went on in the meetings, you think, oh, they meet for a couple hours every other week or twice a month. Wasn't that involved. So in hearing what Ms. Pride had said, it's a lot more preparation than I expected. So it is getting emails to your house, looking at it, digging deep, learning to ask questions. When Ms. Mitchell, Dr. Mitchell had talked about the 4 different offices, you're getting information, you're reaching out to the superintendents, and really getting a strong understanding. So by the time you get into the board meeting, you have that understanding and can make a good decision. So that was a little more involved than I had expected. It's been a great experience. I've enjoyed doing it. I'm learning a lot. You're learning about finance and labor agreements and that type of stuff. So it is a wide range of information to learn, but it's all been really good. And Ms. Pride also talked about involvement. So you start getting requested to come and attend a lot of functions that go on. And I would always remember seeing board members at a lot of the performances and dances and games. And so I thought, okay, but it is quite a few schools that are asking for you to come all the time. And no, you don't have to go to every one, and it has to fit into your schedule, but it is, for me, very fun and enjoyable to go into these things and sit onto the classrooms or performances or whatever that may be, and whatever you may enjoy. So I've really been enjoying that side of it, and that's what I was looking forward to. But I think that the research and background was a little bit more than I expected. So but it's been a good time. It's been a really good time.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And again, if you have any questions at all or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we will be able to respond. As we pick back up on our presentation, looking through the process, what's this process going to be like, a provisional appointment process? So we have already covered a number of steps that are here. So one is we announce the vacancy in a local newspaper and or on our website where the district typically announces business. So we have done that. You all have heard about the announcement, thus you're with us this evening to learn more about what it might be like to serve in the as a board member. We are currently actively soliciting applications for the position for Trustee Area 1 and Trustee Area 5. Applications are completed by all prospective candidates. So after this evening and getting any questions, answers, and understanding, if you would like to be considered as a provisional appointee for the Board of Education, you must complete an application. Those applications are available on our website. There is an entire page that is dedicated to this process. So you are able to complete that application electronically, or hard copies are also available at the district office. Then there will be a subcommittee of less than a quorum of the board, as well as staff, that will review the applications and qualify candidates for interviews. By qualifying candidates, we will be verifying that you meet the criteria to serve as a board member in either Trustee Area 1 or Trustee Area 5. So that application review checks for residency to make sure that you are in one of the eligible trustee areas, and also checks that you have submitted a responsive application that includes the information of the criteria that the board is looking for, so that you're answering the questions that are there. We also, then the board will interview all candidates who qualify at a scheduled board meeting. That will be on February 25th. All candidates will be asked the same questions. After you, if you are interested and you proceed, after you've submitted your application, you'll receive a response from staff that will verify that we have received your application. It will also let you know that there is a meeting that we will be reaching out and talking with you about what that that interview process will be like, because that interview process is at a board meeting in open session, so individuals from our community are able to see you and to hear you and hear the answers to your questions, and all deliberation of the board is also done in open session. So the board will then have a conversation about what they've heard during the interview process. And they will then determine whether they wish to make an appointment on February 25th or whether they would like to invite a few finalists back for an additional interview. The board will then vote on a candidate to fill the vacancy, and the selected candidate is sworn in either immediately or just following, and they then will begin their role for trustee area 5. That position is currently vacant, so the candidate selected for trustee area 5 could take office immediately, and for trustee area 1, that will be vacant as of March 1st. So it is highly likely we would swear in new candidates on March the 1st. So after the selected candidate executes the oath of office, there's some paperwork that we would need to do from a staff perspective with the Los Angeles County Office of Education, and then we would announce to the community using our typical channels who is appointed within 10 days of the board taking action. We need to make that announcement. That's in a nutshell what that process will be like between now and potentially the 25th of February. But again, the board could elect to have a second interview process beyond February 25th, should they choose to do that during the meeting. So this is the criteria when we're looking at applications to qualify. This is the criteria that subcommittee is looking for. Is the interested party 18 years of age or older, a citizen of California, a resident of our school district, and for the current vacancies must reside within the boundaries of either trustee area 1 or trustee area 5, must be a registered voter, cannot be disqualified by the Constitution or laws from the state from holding a civil office, and if there is an employee of the district, they may not be sworn in as an elected official or an appointed member of the board and serve as an employee at the same time. They must resign their position as an employee prior to becoming a board member. And if they are sworn in before they've resigned, then the employment automatically terminates upon being sworn into office. So this is the information that we will be looking for in that subcommittee as eligibility for the position. Looking at trustee areas, I know this map is hard to read on the screen, so I apologize for that. In a general sense, trustee area 1 is the yellow area, so it includes Oswalt Academy and Hollingworth Elementary School. It is in the northeastern portion of our school district. And then we have in the pink area is trustee area 5, and that is the southern eastern part of our district. So you must reside in either the yellow or eligible for the positions that are currently vacant. So this is the information around where applications can be found. Again, all of this information is on our district website at www.rolandschools.org. We are currently accepting applications for trustee area 1 and trustee area 5. The application window closes February 16th at 5 p.m. Applications must be received by the district by February 16th at 5 p.m. Those can be emailed or a hard copy can be turned in at the district office. Again, February 16th at 5 p.m. There is a specific email that has been developed for communication regarding interest as well as submitting your applications. It's RUSD board application at rolandschools.org. And again, hard copy can also be delivered of your application. The application consists of specific questions that the board is interested in seeing and learning and hearing more about you. And applicants may also attach up to 3 additional pages. Could be a resume, a letter of interest, letters of recommendation or support. That is optional. Those 3 additional pages are not required. Those are optional. But the application itself and a response and answer to each of the questions that are there is required. Incomplete application packages will not be considered. Again, all of this information is on our district webpage. If you have further questions, Gina Ward is our Public Information Officer, and her phone number is there on the screen. And then again, the RUSD board application email address and Gina's email address is available there should you have questions. I
We do have 2 questions.
Yeah, I see that. Thank you very much. So there's a question here. It says, what role does the board play in moving our schools forward and educating our kids? Would Ms. Pride, would you like to respond to that, or would you like me to?
I can respond and then you can add to it if you'd like.
Perfect.
So the role of the board in moving our schools forward and educating our kids is by setting policy and providing direction. That is what the board does. We supervise the superintendent. Based upon the mission and the vision statement of the district, we determine what we want to see happen. We ask for a lot of information about programs and services that are already in place and how those are faring. Are they working? Are they not working? We look at data, and based upon that, we provide direction. We set policy, provide direction to the superintendent, and then the superintendent, cabinet, and all of the employees of the district are the ones who do the work. So that's what we do as a board. Anything you can add to that, Dr. Mitchell?
No, I think that you covered it perfectly. We also have a second question. How does the board address the needs of at-risk students, underachievers, and English language learner students?
I would say that we address that in more ways that I could go over off the top of my head. One of the things that we do every year is we have our retreats and our study sessions for the board, where we look at what programs and services do we have in place, what's working. When test results come out, we always have a presentation on how our test results look and where are we still falling short at and what can we do to do better in those areas. So we have at every school different programs and services to support our at-risk kids, our ESL students, and our underachievers. And keep in mind that the programs at every school will be different most of the time. There's some programs that you may see at every campus, but there's a lot of them that you won't, because the population at every school is different. The needs of every child is different. And so we try to develop programs and services based upon the needs of the children at that specific school. What the kids at Hollingworth need may be very different from what the kids at Jellic need. So we don't want to do a one-size-fits-all. We evaluate each school site. We look at the programs and services we have at those sites. Are they working? If not, we'll tweak them or we'll do something different. But our goal is to make sure that every student gets what they need as an individual. Dr. Mitchell?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I would just elaborate too. That also is, how does the board address needs of all students? Because the question specifically is asking about at-risk students or underachievers or English language learners. But we also have students who are in other specialized programs with career technical education, or looking at our international baccalaureate program, our GATE programs, etc. So again, that they address the needs of students across a wide spectrum. And as staff, our responsibility is making sure that we're preparing and providing information to the board on how our students are performing. How our students are performing by grade level, in content areas, in specialized programs, etc., so that the policy and the direction that the board can provide to staff then will apply back through our schools to serve our students at all 19 of our campuses. So that also is part two of, in terms of moving our schools forward and educating our students. It's a very broad question. Third question I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
Perfect. Would the cabinet have anything they'd like to add, or Mr. Venegas, do you have anything you'd like to add?
If I could, I'll add a little bit on how to address underperforming. It's just a real-world example of what just happened recently. We were looking at performance test scores of foster youth. I had questions on why they were performing at a certain level, and expressed Dr. Mitchell to go out and provide more data to me and give me a better understanding of what was going on so we can make informed decisions. So it is stuff that we do look at all levels, as they're saying, for all students and all needs. So we ask a lot of questions. We have then the staff go back out and find data and bring it back to us so we can make decisions on how we should be moving forward.
Perfect. Thank you for adding that. There's a third question. How does the board address community and parental concerns as it pertains to underperforming schools? So, you want to, either Mr. Venegas or Ms. Pride, do you want to start?
I'll start. I think it's a little bit of the same as the question before, and it goes back to what Dr. Mitchell said about all students, as being concerned about all students. But when parents talk to us, and like we have parents who might come to a board meeting or might send us an email about a concern that they have, we listen and we take it to Dr. Mitchell and we ask questions and we look at it. And Dr. Mitchell may have a conversation with the principal or the child's teacher to see what's going on. As far as as it pertains to underperforming schools, that term underperforming schools, I'm not sure what you consider to be an underperforming school may differ from what I consider to be an underperforming school. But if we have schools where test scores are low, then of course we spend a lot of time looking at that and what can we do? What programs do we already have in place there? What support systems do we have? One of the other big things is parental involvement. We have a very strong parent academy that takes place in our district. We have our family resource center that offers support to our parents. We have workshops right now. We have so many incredible workshops going on to support the parents in supporting their children during online learning. So we actually, I think, do a lot more than what I've seen some other school districts change. And moving forward and setting new policy, providing new direction to the superintendent. One thing I'd also like to say is when I say we provide direction to the superintendent, when we give the superintendent direction on something, we get report backs from her on a regular basis. So it's not like we say, okay, go do this, and then we don't ignore it, and we ignore it again for another year. We don't. We get updates from her on the things that direction we've provided to her on a regular basis. So we're kept in the loop. We know what's going on. And, Mr. Venegas, can you think of anything else to add to that?
No, I like the fact that you asked that not only do we provide directions, and then we'll get interim reports and follow up on what's going on, and we'll have follow-up questions. Provide direction up front, we review data, we see what needs to be done, what can be done, and then we continue to follow up. And it is not a one-size-fits-all for all areas, and parental involvement is also very important. And I think it's important that we are reaching out to the parents and hearing what they, as a community members, are saying and what they're feeling. It's not just what I think as a board member. We have to understand what those parents are feeling and bring that to the table.
Perfect. Thank you very much. There's a statement and there's a concern of my concern is individual schools not meeting state standards, and so that there's not a question in that. We recognize that there's a concern that's there, but as a board member, you would work as a governance team. You would get information regarding school performance and data around student performance, and then work through that and work with that based on policy and directions to staff.
Can I add to that, Dr. Mitchell? Just so that all of you know who are in attendance as well, is that at least once a year, usually twice a year, we're provided with information on our test scores and what the trends are and which schools are struggling in what areas and which schools are performing well and in what area. And that's in an open meeting that takes place. I know for sure we do it once a year after we get test results, but then we usually get that information again in another open board meeting or study session. But the one in our study session is very detailed. It's usually 2.5 hours or so spent just on looking at the data. And so whether you get appointed to the board or not, I would encourage all of you, if that's a concern, to come out to those study sessions where that's the topic and look at the information and hear what we're doing and hear how we're making changes based upon those test results that we receive, because we do spend a lot of time on that.
Perfect. Thank you. Another question that's in the chat is, what effect does the board have in getting our students back in school? So that is a fabulous question. And I'd like to start just in making sure that that those that are in attendance tonight know that the ability to have our students back in school at this point is not yet a local decision. So at this point, because of the case rates in Los Angeles County, we are not able to have our students back in school. And we just did present to the board at the last board meeting about the governor's Safe Schools for All plan that he announced in a press conference on December 30th, and the role that the Department of Finance has, the role that the California Department of Public Health has, as well as the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. So there are some changes that are happening with multiple state agencies and things that are also taking place in Sacramento with legislatures regarding adopting bills that have an impact on students returning to in-person instruction. But at this point, the case rate within Los Angeles County is such that we do not have the local ability to open our schools yet. So once the case rate continues to go down, and it is going on a lower, it is coming down, then we will continue to follow the guidance of the Public Health Department as it relates to the opportunity to have our students return to in-person instruction. Mr. Venegas or Ms. Pride, do you want to respond to that from a board member's perspective and the information that you have?
I'll go first. As part of a board member, we have been providing direction to the schools to make sure that we are prepared and ready to come back. We've been authorizing the purchase of equipment, and we're doing protocols that are in place and making sure that they're going to follow all standards, both from the state level, federal level, and on a local level. So one of the things we also have to keep in mind, it's not just the students. Me as a parent, this is before I came on the board, as a parent, I want my child back in school. I think it's good for them. And as a board member, I have to go, okay, but is that, we also have to look at it from the school and the safety of our staff. And so we're looking at it from a holistic standpoint, not just from an individual student standpoint. So we are providing direction, and we are making sure we're prepared, but we're also following local guidelines to make sure we are in compliance. Ms. Pride?
You said it perfectly.
All right, perfect, thank you. Are there any other questions? We have gone through all the questions that were submitted through the chat. Those of you who are in attendance, do you have any other questions that you would like to post in the chat and we can respond to?
Dr. Mitchell, while we're waiting to see if there's any more questions, I'd just like to say one thing. I've served on this board under two different superintendents, and I've served on boards now that have went through three elections? I think 3 elections? 3 or 4? Can't remember. 3 or 4 different elections where we've had changes in the members of our board. And I just want you to know that our board works very well together. It's been a very cohesive group. We respect each other, we respect the process, but most importantly, we respect our role as a board member, and we make sure that we adhere to what our role as a board member is and don't go outside of that, because that's when it can start to cause problems, not just for your board, but for your school district as a whole. As I stated, we've been very fortunate to have a superintendent who keeps us very well informed, and cabinet members that give us great information and answer all of our 50 gazillion questions every month. And not only that, but the staff at our school sites, the principals, we get monthly reports from the principals at our school sites telling us what's going on their sites as well. So we're very informed, and we're lucky to have that. Not every school district has that, is blessed enough to have that happening in their district. And when I first came on the board, we didn't have all that. So we've worked our way into getting to where we are now, and I'm thankful for that. And I can leave this board knowing that the district and the school board is in a very good place. And I hope that whoever comes onto the board will just remember that there's a role that the board plays, there's a role that the superintendent plays, there's a role that the cabinet plays, the principals, everybody. And we have to make sure that we adhere to those roles when you come on here. Any preconceived notions that you have, you can leave those to the side. One of the other things that this district has done is to make sure that professional development is available for our board members. Mr. Venegas has already taken advantage of some of that. When I was a new board member, I took advantage of a lot of the professional development where you get to hear what your job is what your role is as a board member from other people outside of your district as well. So you can make sure that it matches what you're hearing inside of your district. So ours does. So it's a good thing that we invest in our board members just like we invest in our employees. And then the other thing is that every year our board does a board self-evaluation where we evaluate the superintendent, but we also need to evaluate ourselves. And we just had one a couple of weeks ago where we sit down and we look at how are we doing as a board? Are we, doing what our role says we're supposed to do? Are we making progress? Are we staying on top of things? Are we working well together as a team? And it's very effective to be able to do that also each year. So this board is definitely a solid one that's on the right track. And anybody who is lucky enough to be appointed to these positions will come into a good board. The only last thing that I'd like to say is that getting information. A lot of times when new board members come in, the first thing they want to do is just ask for everything. They want to see every test result for the last 10 years. They want to see every budget for the last 8 years, every this. One thing I ask you to remember if you're appointed, when you come onto the board, before you start asking for a whole lot of information, remember that there's people who have jobs in the district that have to gather all that information up for you. And that takes time. And it takes time away from the other job that they're supposed to be doing as well. So please be selective in any information that you ask for, and make sure that it's something that you really need at that moment. Because for every hour that they have to spend trying to pull information together for you, that's an hour that they didn't spend in educating our children. So please keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you. We have that.
After that, it's just a little thing, because we're talking about as a new board member, I think that this is normal, right? This is what a normal board does and functions. When I did some of the professional development recently, and hearing and talking to other new board members in different districts, and hearing how they don't respect their peers on the cabinet, it was eye-opening that the fighting that went on, or they don't get along with their superintendent, or have not met with their superintendent. So there is a lot of respect on this board, and a lot of respect for Dr. Mitchell. So what I would look at it as normal, because this is what I expect, this is what I come into. But when you do the professional development, it is not in all school districts.
And just real quick, I see a question from that says, I want to make a difference. Can I do this by being on the board? Not to change things, but support things. Absolutely. Anybody who comes onto this board, your main goal should be to make a difference, to impact the lives of our students. And some change is good. We're not saying that don't come in thinking that you can change things. Change is good. And sometimes having a different perspective for looking at things is great. I mean, when Mr. Venegas came on the board and we started talking about something, and, we might be looking at it one way, and Mr. Venegas says, but you know what? What about this? And we're like, hey, yeah, great idea. So having that new perspective and, is good, and change can be good as well. So that's okay too, but definitely you can make a difference by being on the school board. If your goal is to support student achievement and you're 100% focused on that, and having Roland Unified School District be a good district and a strong district, maintaining it to be a good district and a strong district, because I personally think we are a very good district and a very strong district, then yes, you could definitely come on here and you can make a difference.
Thank you. There's another question too. It's my understanding that state testing will take place this year. Can the board, and I believe it's, can the board opt out? So state testing is currently, we're in the middle of a transition of administration at the federal level. When our previous federal administration and Secretary of Education was departing. They had said that state testing would be mandatory. There's lots of legislative changes that are taking place. The question specifically is, does the board get to make that independent decision? And while the board could make that decision, it would be advised against. If there's an expectation that there is state testing done at the federal and or the state level, we as a district would be complying with that. So right now, there is much conversation around state testing. There was actually a state board of education meeting that was scheduled for the 11th of February, I believe. And today they just announced that they'd canceled it. The purpose of that meeting was to talk about state testing. They canceled it because they will not yet have federal direction as they had anticipated. So we will follow federal and state guidance as it relates to state testing. Any other questions that you have?
The final thing I would want to say, I know I said that before, but I thought of something else, is that, we as a board, when we were doing our board self-evaluation, and we were talking about the areas where we don't always agree, but yet we come to a consensus together as a board, and we agree to that consensus as a board. And one of the things we always say comes from a handbook from one of our trainings is that our board is unified, but we're not uniform, meaning we work together. Once the vote is cast, even if it's 3-2, those other two are going to come on board with the 3 who voted for whatever it was, because we're going to work together. So we may not agree all the time. We have different points of views on different things sometimes, but we, in the end, remain a unified board, just like we're a unified school district. And it has truly been my pleasure to be able to work with such a great team at the district office with Dr. Mitchell, Mr. Flores, Ms. Zamora, and Mr. Bixler. And it's been amazing. I've never felt like I've not been given information. I've never felt like I've been told no, or I've been given misinformation, or that I've been led astray. I've always felt that all my questions were answered. I always felt that everything was transparent. And I am happy to say that. And I think that whoever comes to our board will find that out too.
Perfect. Thank you. So I don't see any other questions in the chat. Again, on the screen, you have the information of where to call or email if you've got any questions. All of the application materials are on the district website. I just would like to thank you very much for your interest in learning more about how you can serve your community. Again, Ms. Pride answered the question about, I'm interested in serving on the board. Can I make a difference? As a board member, can I make a difference? And yes, you do make a difference. It is an extreme pleasure to be able to serve the youth of the community and to be able to work with our community as a whole. We're one of the largest employers within our area, and so being able to serve such a broad audience of individuals, I can't think of any better way to spend your time. With that, there's blending with the board is the must. Do you agree? So there's one other question that came up. So blending with the question reads, blending with the board is a must. Do you agree?
Mr. Venegas should take that one.
Yeah, and I think, and Ms. Pride, you touched on it, is the blending question, right? We're allowed to have difference of opinion. We don't have to agree on everything, but we have to respect each other's viewpoints and consider all sides. So I would be careful on the word blending. It is, I don't always have to agree with the other board members, but at the end, when we decide and we vote, we then are unified and we can run as a whole. That's what they were trying to get at. But we don't have to be the same. Ms. Pride and I don't have to have the exact same views on everything.
And we have no hidden agendas.
Right.
So again, thank you very much for your interest. Mr. Venegas, Ms. Pride, you want any closing comments that you'd like to make?
I just say thank you again, all of you, for attending. I hope to see After this information session, I hope that this will provide you with additional information on whether this is a position that you're truly interested in. And if so, then I look forward to seeing your application and seeing you at the interview process. And again, thank you for being involved enough to come out for the meeting this evening. We appreciate it. Mr. Venegas?
We do, and yeah, no, I appreciate it. And coming out, spending your time to come and look at it and be interested and getting involved. And from a community standpoint, I think that's what's important. If we all pitch in, it makes a difference. So thank you for being here and asking questions and wanting to be involved. And we appreciate that.
Absolutely. So again, thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe, and please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions as you go through this process. And in the end, if you choose that perhaps being a board member is not the path for you, please find other ways to get involved with the community. All of our board meetings right now are done electronically through virtual means due to the virus, and so you're able to tune in from the comfort of your home. So please feel free to do so. And then if there are other ways that you're interested, how can you continue to serve the youth of the community if maybe being a board member is not right up your alley at this particular time? Don't hesitate to reach out to any of our current board members or any of our staff and ask how you could serve the community and the youth in our community, and we'd be happy to share ideas with you. So again, thank you very much. Stay safe, and look forward to seeing your applications on the 16th.
Thank